the last housing crash freshen investors' mind? Do you think that the next one will be much more rapid, 2 to 3 years, as opposed to 6 years? I don't. It could be. I mean, I totally get your argument, but honestly, I think it has to do more with interest rates. As crazy as that sounds, because I'm under the opinion that one of the main reasons there's such short supply right now, other than the obvious that people don't want to sell and just everything that's going on in the crazy world in which we live. But also, I think so much of the inventory of starter homes, and not across the United States, but in specific markets, which when you look at it as a percentage of how many possible homes could be available to new buyers, it's a significant percentage of these homes are owned by private equity funds. And especially, and these are the homes that you really see going up in price. It's not really the high end, although the high end and the outskirts, I get it. It's going up in price because people are just trying to kind of get some freedom from the cerveza sickness. But if you look at kind of the broad strokes, the U.S. housing market from like a 30,000 foot level, the main price appreciation is kind of with these starter homes, right? The homes under like 300 grand in most markets. That's what's really gone ballistic. And so you say, well, why? Okay, it's supply. But see, that's where all these private equity funds have so much of their, or that's the inventory that so many of these private equity funds own. Okay, so what's the big deal? Private equity funds they're not real estate guys usually. And I guarantee you that most of them are looking at their real estate investments saying, well, this sucks. This is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of maintenance. These property managers are ripping us off. And they're like, man, it's a lot easier to get a 6 or 7% return with just a treasury. And so I don't know when it happens, but I think one of the triggers for the housing market going down, kind of like a double whammy trigger, would be that interest rates going up. So mortgage rates go up, therefore housing becomes less affordable for new buyers, and therefore you have fewer buyers, downward pressure on prices. But at the same time, you have potentially a lot of supply hitting the market because a lot of these private equity funds are looking at this, let's call it 6% return that they're getting with a lot of work for rents, when they could just liquidate, take that money and then put it into a 10-year treasury and get 6 or 7%. I think you're going to see them parlaying that capital. You're going to see them shifting their capital from real estate into something that they just know better, and that's stocks and bonds. The question is, when do we get to those rates, if ever? I don't know. But my point is, in order to get a super quick, like 2-3 year, like 50% down in the housing market, I think you'd need to see much higher interest rates to have that rotation from the private equity firms and the hedge funds. And then one more thing I want to point out there that I think is important is so many people get super focused on housing affordability because the interest rates are low, therefore their mortgage payments are cheap. And I totally get it. And that argument makes sense all day long. But my pushback there is, okay, although higher interest rates might not affect the current owner of the property because they've got a fixed rate, if they ever want to sell, what's going to happen is they're going to have to sell into a market where buyers have less disposable income or less money or less purchasing power, because interest rates are higher, and therefore their mortgage payment on the property with the same exact value is going to be significantly higher. And that means fewer buyers or less purchasing power, less demand, therefore downward pressure on prices. One last thing, and I'm going to use this as a shameless plug to check out the new Rebel Capitalist channel. I did a deep dive on the forbearance for mortgages, and I looked into the CARES Act specifically. And I pull up the actual CARES Act when I'm looking at it and reviewing it, and I don't think anyone has thought this through. We all know the forbearance for mortgages is 180 days, and then you can extend it another 180 days, so about a year total. But no one asked the question, well, what was the deadline for applying for the forbearance in the first place? I think most people think that it was like 30 days after the CARES Act, or like 90 days after the CARES Act. Nope. It's indefinite. It's indefinite. If you read the fine print with the CARES Act, and I do it in that video on Rebel Capitalist, you see that it's predicated upon when the United States declares they're no longer in a national emergency. So now I tried to find out, are we in a national emergency? I know we declared it. I would assume that we still are because we're dealing with the cerveza sickness. So when do they lift the national emergency title? Who knows? they could have it for the rest of 2021, in which case, according to the CARES Act, you, the homeowner, or the mortgage owner, let's say, you can still file for forbearance. So right now there's 5 million people roughly with mortgages that are under forbearance. And those 5 million people, unless we get another extension, which we very well could, they're not paying their mortgage. That would be new supply that would come into the market, assuming that they can't sell, they can't make those payments. If unemployment stays structurally high, which if you look at jobless claims, I think it will, that could be a lot of additional supply coming onto the market at that time. But you've got that cross current of more and more people, or different groups of people that may be losing their jobs in the future, being able to actually file for the forbearance because there's just no deadline on it because of this little clause that says that you're more than able to file an application and most likely will be approved, so long as the United States is in a state of national emergency. So just kind of a quick little insider secret there that I wanted to reveal, because I think it's very relevant if we're trying to think through and figure out the probabilities of of home prices going down or up in 2021 and beyond.